360 Virtual Home Tours by Sam. Hi, I'm Sam Dorfman, and today we're going to discuss Matterport URL Parameters. So when you're looking at a Matterport model, you originally get into it by clicking somewhere, and when you're clicking, you're in effect going to a web page, and this particular web page is where all the URL models are stored. And when you get there, a program takes over to display your particular model, and that program is the Matterport display program, which is written in JavaScript, and that program has the ability to pick up values which are parameters, which are in the very back of the URL. So let's take a look for a second. You notice here that the URL or web address is https://mymatterport.com. Now, that's the address. Okay. Now, /show is where the models are, and then this question mark begins a parameter list, and the only necessary parameter is which I put down XXXXXX. It's a set of characters representing that particular model ID. So that's the only thing you really need. But you can add ampersand and a parameter name, an equal sign, and a value for each parameter that you want to add, which will somehow modify how your model is displayed. So Matterport has some documentation for the URL parameters, and I'm going to follow along with their documentation and show you examples of most of them. So they got them categorized as launching a 3D showcase, visibility, user interface, guided tours, and virtual reality. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories. And the first category, launching 3D showcase, you'll notice it actually, the parameter is HELP for help. And if we didn't put anything in there at all, it would have a null value. And so it would show help for new users, those who have never opened a Matterport model before. So I assume they use a cookie or something. So first time you go in a model, they know you've been there, and after that, you're not going to show the help anymore. So the other values are 0 for don't show help at all, 1 for always show help when a model opens, and 2, show help, but it's just a small help. So let's try each of those. And I've set up this web page where I have each of those calls. So the first one, which is a null or default, Of course, I've been there before. So when the model opens, you don't see a help message over here across the screen. So let's go back and try this thing here, which doesn't show help at all. And again, you won't have a help message. And then let's try help equals 1, which will be our biggest help message. So now as the model opens, you see this help message here, and it's telling us that we can explore this 3D space, which is another word for the model. And we could do it by rotating, not rotating, it's actually left or right, or we could use the arrows on our keyboard. And then we can also move in these circles, which is a walking tour. And we can also go use the up and down arrows, which isn't quite as comprehensive as using the circles. And then we can also zoom, which is using the mouse wheel, or we can use a plus and minus key. So this shows us this help message to let us know the first time we're in. And if we just click off on the side somewhere, that message is gone. So let's go back and do help equals 2. And all you get there is a short message that says, click to explore this 3D space. So you can click here, and now you're in the space. So that's the parameters for the help. There's at the very bottom of your screen, right-hand side, there's the words HELP. And if you click on them, you can get more comprehensive help messages. And we'll go into that another time. So that's the first parameter. The second one is a highlight reel. And let's see, highlight reel has 3 choices here. 1, which is a default if you don't put anything. It shows the highlight reel upon launching before hiding. And that happens if you don't have a 360 view in your highlight reel. Okay. If you, the default again, if you do have a 360, it'll show the highlight reel when you launch. And 2 is keeps the highlight reel collapsed. And this is only available if there's no 360 view. So let's try those. So in particular, I have 360 views in my highlight reel. So when I click there, your highlight reel disappears. You can also make it reappear, of course, by clicking this open highlights button. And then if you have 1, your highlight reel is not going to disappear. And then if we have a 2, again, since I have 360s, your highlight reel will not disappear. The next is it has to do with your browser tab. And let's see what it says here. So this is only for mobile devices. So with a mobile device, and if the model is embedded in the web page, which means it's in an iframe, then and you open the model, it'll open in the same tab. Okay, if you have a 0, and otherwise you'll open in a new browser tab. But those are for embedded models. So, and also if you're a mobile device. So since we're actually neither one of those, let's see what happens. And so again, if we have 0, okay, it opens and we're in the same tab that we started with, which we can go back on. And if it's 1, we're still in the same tab that we started with. So basically, it doesn't add a tab unless you're in a mobile device and with an iframe. Okay, so now the next one is play, but it's not the play button that we'd use to show a guided tour. It's a special button. Again, if you're in an iframe, then the model will show a button, a play button, right in the center of the picture, and you have to click on that to get the model open. So again, we wouldn't have that in our case. However, they have a sample here where we do have a play equals 1, but I've been in here before, and so there's no arrow here, so I can't even show you this. So let's go back. Let's see here. All right, so here's an interesting one, quick start. So ordinarily, when I click here, this is quick start equals 0, and you notice we start with a Dollhouse and then we zoom into the starting position of the model. So if we use quick start equals 1, then we skip the Dollhouse altogether and we go directly into the model. So now this TS, the time in seconds before a guided tour. So if we're going to start a guided tour, then if you put a negative value, let's go back here to parameters here. So if you have a value in there that's positive, you will start the model, and then you will go into a guided tour after so many seconds. And if you put a negative value in there, then you won't. So let's start with a negative value, and you see nothing happens. You're just sitting there. And let's go for plus 3 seconds. Now 3 seconds doesn't seem like very long, but it's a tiny bit of a wait. And then the guided tour starts. Okay, and let's try it here for 5 seconds. And now it starts. So even 5 seconds already seems like a bit of a wait. If you put something like 10 or 15 seconds, it'd be quite a wait. Okay, so we finished section 1, which is launching the 3D showcase. And now we're going on to visibility. And there's a few arguments there. So let's go into the visibility. And the first is branding. So ordinarily, by default, all the information on the top left is there by default. And if you put 0, it hides contact details. So let's try that. So our default in the upper left-hand corner, you got a presented by and the building, and then more information. That's me, an administrator, some contact information, and the address. Okay, now let's see what happens if I set brand equal to 0. Okay, so we still have the building identifier, and we still have the address, but all that contact information is not there. So generally, when you put a property in the MLS, they prefer no branding and can be chastised for putting branding in there. But if you're putting this model on your web page where it belongs to you, then certainly you want to have branding. So, but this is a way of turning it off for the MLS, and you can turn it back on when you put it on your web page. The next one is Dollhouse. And the default is show the Dollhouse view, and 0 hides a Dollhouse in the introductory fly-in and hides it in the button on the toolbar, and Dollhouse and floor plan view snapshots and hides them. If you put the Dollhouse and floor plan in your highlight reel, which I generally don't do because it's already on the toolbar, but if you put it there, 0 would also take it off from there too. So let's try that. So Dollhouse, the default, we have our Dollhouse and the fly-in, and you also have here on the toolbar, view the Dollhouse, and if we put DH equals 0, again, there's no fly-in, and there's no Dollhouse here on your toolbar. So let's see the next one, which is the guided tour button. And so again, the default is 1. It shows the guided tour button. So we have our guided tour button, and guided tour equals 0. There's no guided tour button. And you still have the highlight reel. You can still go through the individual highlights, but there's no automatic playing. Now, the highlight reel, again, we always show it. Although we had some options of hiding that earlier on, and that was partly dependent upon whether we had 360 views. Now here's a completely shutting off the highlight reel altogether, or showing it. So of course, if you didn't create a highlight reel in the first place, you wouldn't be able to see it. And also, when you're doing your, when the workshop is creating things, you actually have to set a switch to show the highlight reel also there. So again, go back here, and the highlight reel is there by default. And then I set it 0. You don't see the highlight reel. But again, if the highlight reel was created, hitting this play or guided tour will still show us the guided tour. You just won't see the actual highlights as you're going through the guided tour, but they're there. Again, you had to put them there. Oh, I might mention this also. This has nothing to do with the parameters. In general, when you're going through a guided tour, as soon as you stop the guided tour, either because it's come to an end or because you click to stop it, the very first time you get this same help message. That's not a turn off or on, that's automatic. All right, where are we now? How that real? MLS. Now this is a combination thing. Someone has decided, I'm not quite sure how they determined this, but in the MLS, if you want to be MLS friendly, which is setting this value to 1, then it does the following things. It removes the branding. It removes your matter tag posts. I have no idea why they want to do that. And it also removes the virtual reality button. Okay. And then if you're using number 2, it also removes the About panel in the top left corner. And of course, if it's 0, you got everything. So let's try those. So first with 0, and you've got everything. So you got your VR over here. You've got all your title information over here. Everything's just normal. And that's when it's 0. Okay. And that's the default. Now, MLS equals 1. You've lost your VR button. And you've also, this stuff right here, all you have is your building name and your address. So that's the same thing as setting brand equal to 0. And MLS equals 2. Now you got nothing up here. And again, you don't have your VR button. Okay, MT. That's the hide the matter tags. And a default is show the matter tags. So that's easy enough. So MT, take the default. And you'll see there's matter tags here. And you don't want to show the matter tags. They're gone everywhere. Next, pin. Okay, this I won't be able to demonstrate also. If you want to, there's an option for taking the 360 view and dragging it into your general model view. It's called a mesh. And so you could take like a spot at the front door. It's exterior to the building, and take that view and drag it right up to the front door. And then you would actually see a little symbol, 360. So when you're doing your walking tour, you could click on that and go outside the house and see the outside view, and then click to go back in. That's a nice option, but generally all I do is take my 360 views and I put them in the highlight reel. But if you did this, there's this option called Pin, which shows the 360 views in the dollhouse and floor plan. So you'd have this 360 button to get you to that outside view or not. So that's that one. And also the next one, the portal, which the first is the button to get you there. And then portal is the button, again, as default. If you put 0, you can't do it. And that's to actually get to that view. So one is the button to get you to view, and the other is actually seeing the view itself. So we have finished the second category, and now we're on to user interface. Okay, and so user interface, and one of the things is switching floors. Now that's pretty strange. Takes all the floors and puts them all into one model, so you don't have a choice of which floor to go on when you're looking at the various floors. So let's see what that looks like. Again, I can't see any specific use for it, but it's there. So we're over to the floor, and the default is you see all your floors, and basically right over here you have a floor selector, which you can go. This thing has, even though there's 5 levels, it interpreted as 2 floors. And so you can go from one floor to the other. Here's your floor plan. So you're on floor 1 or floor 2. Okay, so that's the usual case. And by setting it to 1, everything is represented as one floor, which is kind of weird. You can't see. Let's go to Dollhouse. So in the Dollhouse, with the floor selector, you could actually you could look at the first floor and take the roof off, which would be take the second floor off so you can look down into the model. In this case, it's all one thing. And so you can, no floor selector. Let's go back to that one again on the defaults. I just want to show you what that actually does. So if we're looking at the Dollhouse, if I choose a floor, say floor 1, then floor 2 disappears, and so you get a nice down view of the whole thing. And if I chose floor 2, then floor 1 would disappear, and you just see floor 2. All righty. Next is language, and you got a choice of lots of languages, and it's not everything, but it's a lot of what you see in a language. And so I didn't mess around with it too much. What I did here is, sorry. English is the default, American English. So when I do that, you got your usual stuff. So again, it won't affect the titles you put here or the names you put in the floor plan. It'll affect a few other things. Let's try it. Let's see here. The other language I chose was Japanese. So here it says presented by George Cahill in Japanese. And the rest of it is untouched. And then if I go into help, the word help is in Japanese. If I click on that, you see the helps in Japanese. So that's the language. Next is no zoom. So the next two parameters have to do with zoom. The default is enabling zoom in the it doesn't say zoom, it says no zoom. So no zoom disables zoom in the 3D showcase, and the default is the normal thing, which enables zoom. So let's try that. So here's the normal zoom. And basically, I'm in a particular view, and I use my mouse wheel, and I can zoom out or zoom in. Okay. And with no zoom, I can turn my mouse wheel, whoops. Okay, so it's not zooming in. It's actually moving around. That's kind of weird. Okay, now there's also, zoom is also controlled by plus or minus. And let's see what happens if I push plus or minus here. Nothing. Okay. So let's go back to normal. The default. And besides using my wheel to get in and out, I can also go on my keyboard and hit the plus sign and a minus sign, and it is working. Okay, so it's just something strange with the wheel when you have the thing turned off. Now, there's another thing. It's called the wheel. And that has to also go in and out, but if the model is embedded in an iframe, then 0 will ignore the scroll wheel, and 1 enables the scroll wheel from the mouse, so it can zoom in on the iframe. So so here they have wheel equals 0, and this is an iframe, so we're going to use this one. Oh, you notice the arrow. Okay, you notice this play button here. So that's what I was talking about before. Initially, when you go into a model, it's in an iframe. You're going to see this funny play button just to get you into the model. So again, though, we're looking at wheel equals 0. So let's get into the model. Okay, now when I do the mouse wheel, instead of the picture zooming in, we're actually just scrolling up and down, which would be a normal thing looking at a web page. So that shows us that for an iframe, we've turned off the zoom when we have the zoom equals the WH equal to 0. Okay. So we've go to the next category, which is guided tours. And the first thing on the guided tours, it says, do not pan when you reach a new highlight reel, a new highlight in the guided tour. Default is gently pan. Okay. And when you're setting up your highlights, you generally put in pan left, pan right, or automatically decide which way to go. And this is saying if it's 0, don't pan at all. So let's see what that does. Okay. So ordinarily, let's go through a guided tour. You don't have to do the whole thing, but just to see how it goes. And let's start it. These are 360 views, and they don't pan anyway. So we're going to start at the walking tour right here. So I click on that. We start there, and we're going to start our guided tour. So you notice we're panning. We get to a view, and then we pan. And another view, and then we pan. And another view, and we pan. I don't care for the pans on the stairs, but the pan in a room is kind of nice. Pans around the room. And then we go to the next view. And again, the stairs is kind of weird. But again, we're here and we pan. All right, so that's the normal pan. Now, what happens if we don't pan? I think it's kind of interesting. Panning is 0. Our entrance. Now notice we're not panning. So it just sits there. Get in there and we sit there for a while. And then we don't have that obnoxious pan at the stairs. But then it'd be nice if we panned around that room, and we don't have that. Okay. So again, we have some panning, but that panning is not the pan that we're referring to. So the pause is where that panning would be. So it's an optional way of doing things, but we're going to see something even more interesting shortly. So let me stop this. And here is the guided tour loop. So the default is no loop. So let me go all the way to the end of the guided tour. So let's start here at the top bedroom. Okay, and let's go into guided tour. So we're only going to go top bedroom, living room, deck, and common veranda. And then we're going to stop. And of course, there's that help message. So it just stops there. All right, now, if I set loop equal 1, and start way at the end again. So as soon as we go to the veranda, our last view, then we go back and start at the very beginning. So that is a kind of cool thing. If you were showing this at a shopping mall or something with people coming to watch it, you could just have this thing looping through the guided tour. And now here's the interesting one. The pause time between each highlight. So here's the default. So again, this is what we've seen before, including the panning, and going to each place. So they're using 3,500 milliseconds. So let me try something different here. And I'm set at 3,500 milliseconds. I'm doing 10,000 milliseconds, which is almost tripling the time. Now watch what happens. I think this is interesting. So it actually uses the pan as the time. It's integrating the pan during that 10,000 milliseconds. So watch it. I kind of like this view. So you notice we're getting a really slow pan. And so we're not rushing into anything. Again, you got to put up with that pan at the stairs. But now when we go into the living room, we get a nice slow plan of the whole living room. We get to take a look at that view and the outside, and slowly pan, go up the stairs into the dining area. So you're tripling that waiting time, but you're also giving people a chance to have a nice view. Of course, they can always stop it and just do a walking tour, but this is kind of nice. So that's enough for this. Okay. The next is title information. Let's see what it says here. So the default is all your title information. 0 says that the space title is not displayed. The top left panel is not displayed. So this takes everything away. And then this one here just takes away part of it. So let's see what this takes away. So we have the presented by. I think all we're losing is the property name. I don't know. That was title equals 2. All right, so let's go in mine and see. Oops. So title equals 1. I get everything. And title equals 2. Oh, sorry, title equals 0. I get nothing. And I'm still not sure with the title equals to business. Try it again. I don't see anything missing. I don't know. Okay. Okay. This next one is tour call to action. And that's kind of interesting. It's almost like the help button. You'll see what I mean. If I do tour call to action 1, didn't get anything. Tour call to action 0. I better reread this thing. Oh, it's at the end of a guided tour. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have to position ourselves at the end of each guided tour. So let's go back in there again. So let's start the first one. Okay. So this help message is our call to action. Click to explore the 3D space. And it has our help stuff. So that's our default. And if we have 1, 0, I mean, we don't have anything there, which is what we expect. And then the last case, which is a 2, So instead of the help message, let's click to explore this 3D space. Okay, so it's very similar to the help message. And then transition speed in meters per second. Now this is the time it takes to get from one highlight to another. So let's start with 1, 2, and then 3. Okay, so that's the first speed. 2, and then 3. So this will be slowing it down the most. Oops. Okay, so I was backwards. I know it seemed funny. So 3 is the fastest and 1 is the slowest. All right, and we're now in the last thing, which is virtual reality. And all it does is either show the VR button or hide the VR button. I'll do that real quickly. So 1 is show the VR button, there it is. And 0 is hide the VR button. So that's it. It's all the parameters in their documentation. There is one or more other parameters which they don't bother documenting because it's not really are concerned to mess with. And I know one of them that I saw when I was trying to get a URL to send an email had a strange looking parameter, and I asked them what it was, and they said it was for internal documentation. So they were keeping track of particular models that are being used in an email. So it's useful statistics for them, not particularly for us. So that's it.